What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
And that is the topic of today's question, everybody. Caleb, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Caleb?
I am doing fantastic. I've been on a Plato kick for the last week, and it's been fun. I love Greek philosophy.
I mean, it's the best, so why bother with the rest?
Honestly, like if you read Plato and Aristotle, I would say if you read Plato and Aristotle, and you read Augustine and Aquinas, there's really maybe Pascal. Like that's maybe the only other guy you should incorporate into your read. I can't think of anyone else who I would want to say you have to read him. Like there's not many.
No, the ones I would say you have to didn't write anything down, so.
So today we're talking about Plato's Symposium. This was the first Plato work I ever read. Loved it. Absolutely. I listened to podcasts on it first, and I'm like, okay, I guess I got to read this. I found an Audible where it's different voices for each person, and it's like a dramatized play of it. Oh my gosh, is it fun? It's absolutely. Daniel, this hopped in, you missed it. Okay, Daniel, hold on. Okay, sorry, Jacob. Okay, look, this is literally the intro for the podcast I did, Jacob, and you missed it.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
Literally, that was the intro, and you hopped in late and missed it.
I apologize if I start laughing. My wife has decided to make funny faces right out of shot.
Awesome. So today's, because it's Greek and it's on a symposium, I got a nice Italian wine.
Ooh.
It's a sweet wine, Moscato. I saw it on the shelf. I'm like, I never had a sweet wine. Let's give it a try. I already drank some of it yesterday because it's Thanksgiving and it was so good. Are you drinking anything today? Grape juice or?
I just finished off a glass of milk.
Milk. You ever hear Arnold Schwarzenegger on milk?
Yeah, it's for babies.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a bodybuilder, so.
That is fair. So, what is love? I say here's what we should do. We should each provide what we thought of love before we read the book, go through the book a little bit, and then kind of evaluate where our views on love have shifted based on after reading the book. So before you read philosophy, you kind of got into it when you were younger. How did you define love? Someone asked you.
I have often defaulted to the definition my dad gave me, which is the desire for the highest good of what you love over your own good. Which kind of focuses on the emotion rather than like the noun of what is love itself. But that's kind of my default.
I see. I never really had a solid definition for love. I was basically, as you get into the book, you see people make praise of love, but never actually define what love is.
Mm-hmm.
That was me. My definition of love was all example based. And so I never really, until I read this book, I never realized I actually never tried to define it in the first place. I just provided examples. So let's go through it. So first, people who don't know, a symposium is basically a Greek drinking party where people would talk, drink, eat, and fuck. That's what it was. It was a Greek, basically, if you take out the fucking part of it, it'd be my favorite thing ever. Like, my favorite parties have been symposiums I've had in my head.
Yeah.
Which leads to the Goldie, you're doing it too. You missed the intro. The intro for the podcast is literally the song. I'm not playing it again because it'll be the third time, but we wind in and watch the intro.
We're gonna get a copyright strike if we keep playing it.
Definitely. Well, I don't make any money off of these, so it's fine. I actually don't want to make money off of these because I enjoy the liberty of not having to worry about it. Needs a question. If you could host a symposium with any 4 people throughout history, who would you invite?
Okay. 4 people. And we're going the usual. There's some kind of translator. Language isn't an issue. Okay.
We all have the Star Trek Universal Translator.
Yeah. I want Jesus, of
Mm.
course. Diogenes.
Mm.
I think he would be the most fun to have at a party
Yeah,
of the
I
Greek
agree.
philosophers. Augustine.
Mm.
And who to round that out? Probably C.S. Lewis.
Okay. So my four would be Chesterton, Lewis, Aquinas, Augustine.
Yeah.
I would have just the pinnacle of, in my opinion, Christian philosophy, and we would just have very deep conversations from there. We would end up converting Lewis. That would be the entire purpose of the conversation, is to convert Lewis.
I mean, if Tolkien couldn't do it.
Yeah. So let's get into this. So it opens at Symposium. It opens with, it was a big event. It was a big I'm terrible with names, so I'm not going to say any of them. Actually, no, I will have to. Actually, hold on.
You can try. I don't want to.
Well, it's not that I can't pronounce them. It's that I don't I can't remember them. So
Nero would be fun to have at a party.
It'd be fun.
I think I'd be dead by the end.
What was his name? Alcibiades. Is that him? That's the one? Hold on.
That's the guy who's starting.
No, Alcibiades is the end of it. He's the guy who joins the party in the end. It was
It's Apollodorus. I don't.
Agathon.
Okay.
Agathon's
hosting the party.
Yeah, Agathon is the host of the party because he won this big competition about poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Plato skips the first night because he doesn't want to go in on drinking. You find out later, no one's ever seen Plato drunk. Seen Socrates drunk because you can't drink on the table. He really was just the pinnacle. And so he goes the second night, and the story is told in the book by a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy. It's like 3 levels removed, and so you don't have the full story. You only have the parts he was told and parts he remembers.
Mm-hmm.
But they basically just get there and they decide, we're going to give a speech, each of us, on praise to Eros, the god of love. And they proceed to do so. And so let's kind of go through what the first speech was given by, maybe I should have wrote down the names of who gave each speech. Phaedrus, I think, gave the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Phaedrus, in my opinion, he had the one out of all of them besides Socrates that was the most convincing and most interesting to me.
Yeah.
So his speech is basically what love calls you to do. Love calls you to be greater. You know, like I wrote it down here somewhere. I have a bunch of notes for this one. At the start was that just the mere act of wanting love causes you to better yourself in effort to get love. So not even like acquiring it, just the effort to acquire it makes you better. Which is his point about if you had an army of all levels, they'd be unstoppable. All I could think of was Sparta.
There actually was. It was after Plato's time, if I remember right. There was a Greek military unit, and it was like 300 lovers.
And they all, if I remember correctly, they were pretty good.
Yeah. Their last military action, they died to a man fighting someone, but like no one ran away ever because of the reasons that Phaedrus gives.
Yes, he has compelling reasons for what is one of the good things about love. I mean, I don't have a girlfriend. I've never had a girlfriend, so I can't speak personally on any of this. But this is like, I know that when I get on Tinder or anyone trying to pursue any kind of relationship, I need to get into the gym. I need to shower more. I need to do everything I need to do. I start doing better. Yep. And this is me after trying to get love. I have bettered myself along the way, which is
absolutely
a great thing. But I should probably say before I go forward, the book is very gay. Greeks were gay, and they were the good kind of gay, in my opinion, because there's 2 kinds of gays. There's the gay that is hyper masculine and attracted to the masculine, so they embody masculinity. And so they become buff, strong, and very manly to embody what is attractive about being man in the first place. Mm-hmm. As opposed to modern gay, which is very feminine.
Yeah.
I don't know why the switch happened. I have some series, but that's in the podcast to do that.
Yeah. I remember, I forget what it was from, but it's a saying about the Italians, how Italy never invented anything, but they did steal a lot and make it all better. And so they took arches from the Etruscans and made Rome. They took noodles from China and made pasta. They took sex from the Greeks and introduced it to women.
My favorite joke. One of my favorite jokes is a Greek and an Italian arguing. A Greek and a Roman. And they argue about who's better. And the Greeks like, we invented democracy. And the Romans are like, we created Colosseum. And then they argue and the Greek goes, but we invented sex. And the Roman goes, yes, we introduced it to women.
Yep.
Well, this is my favorite saying from Aristotle is that when he was working in Italy, training Alexander, he hated it because he had too much sex. He literally wrote one of his letters. There was just too much sex. They would never go to sleep alone and never go to sleep on an empty stomach. And the reason it was too much sex is there was actually women involved. And it was like, I can't have sex with both sides all the time.
Well, I mean, one of the origin stories of our picture of the heart is that there was a plant that was a natural birth control if you ate it, and the Romans used so much of it, it went extinct. But its seed is our modern heart shape, allegedly.
Wow. I did not. That is cool.
Yeah.
I did not know that. See, guys, it pays to have a history degree.
Yes, I get to drop a fun fact every once in a while.
It pays to have a friend who has a history degree.
There you go.
I get all the benefits and none of the downsides.
Yeah.
So, I want to talk a little bit about there's two kinds of love: the sexual and then the non-sexual. I don't have a term to separate these two. Do you have any idea how we can go about the conversation by separating the two kinds of love?
I mean, there's always the four loves: the Greek, the eros, the philia, agape, and storge. Yeah. But if you're just separating, I think for the sake of conversation, let's just default to the non-sexual, and then if we want to specify, we can do so.
So, second, do you have anything you want to add about the first speech before we move on to the second speech about how love calls you to be greater?
I agreed. I thought it, like you said, I thought it was the most convincing of the non-Socrates ones.
Yeah, it is. I actually want to read a line from it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not a very prepared podcast, people. This is going to be a bunch of fucking around talking about Greek philosophy and let's see if I can find it. Oh, so my favorite line is talking about the heroes who went after love, who went into the underworld and stuff, or willing to die just to be with their love, and how love calls you to be better and calls you to risk it all just for the sake of being with your loved one. And he goes about how even women can experience this. And it's just like not just men, but to women too. It speaks a lot to Dennis Prager has this thing about, it's probably accurate. He talks about how before Christianity popularized marriage, the common state of man was bisexual. Men were for fun, women for having kids.
Yep.
And
you definitely see that in this.
Mm-hmm. But I feel we have to address it. The pedophilic style of a lot of it, the boy and the man. I want to address it a little bit, not too much. Plato was down on it, and so was Socrates, it seems like, because he has the opportunity. And the end was that Alcibiades, but hates him apparently and mocks him. There is something to the mental relationship that can occur if you remove the sexual aspect of it. The sex of it is bad, but the mental relationship part of it is good.
Yeah,
and I think that the corrupting aspect of sex is what ruins a lot of it, but the idea of mentorship is not inherently bad.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like I had plenty of mentors, like just in my life, and yeah, you take out the weird Greekness of it, and it's a wonderful thing that can actually be a betterment to people. But when your culture is kind of built around sex, like the Greek culture was, it's hard to imagine any kind of relationship without it. Stepping into their worldview a bit. Like, of course, this is a part of it because this is a part of everyday life. Compare that to modern America, where, I mean, we're the cultural descendants of the Puritans. So we're on the exact opposite track of that, where no, we never talk about anything like that.
The Catholic view of love is very, I like it. The pre-Trinian Catholic view of love.
Okay.
Sex is a gift. Sex is good. Sex is in the confines of marriage through the covenant. It is literally a act of worship and fulfillment of the covenant. That it is taking part in God's creation by continuing His creation through the gift that He gave us of creation. I think that is beautiful and wonderful. And I have my problems with the hardcore Puritan who was disgusting, ugly, and only sanctified through contracts.
Yeah. The first commandment after the fall, first commandment during the fall, don't eat that. First commandment after the fall is be fruitful and multiply. The very first thing God tells people to do.
I love how God's punishment for everyone after God was, hey, now you have to work and have kids.
Yeah.
The work that you have to do that makes you happy is have a good job and have kids. God was like, that wasn't the intent.
Right.
There's something to that I want to explore more, but not in this podcast.
Okay.
Have you, complete off stream, have you ever listened to Contra Gentiles, the podcast?
No.
Okay. Grant from Twitter, not actual Grant's name now, and his friend Jeremy in Alaska. He's a philosophy professor. And they just do a podcast where they talk. They're both very Aristotelian, both very Thomistic, and they just go to. He has two masters, or he has a master with study in analytical philosophy and epistemology. And so everything he does is very analytical and based on where do you get the knowledge from. And he'll walk you through anything, and you're like, even if you solve disagree with him, by the time he's done, you don't know where to disagree with him at. And he's kind of an ass because he will use modern words, but he'll still use the Greek definition. And so, like, someone died of cancer. He's like, that's pathetic. It's because it lacked meaning. It lacked a pesos. It lacked meaning. It's like, you're not wrong, but you're being a douchebag. And I love that kind of attitude. It's very Socrates-esque. And it's a great podcast.
Okay.
They went through the metaphysics of sex and what is the act of dicking down. And it is so fun and weird. I can't recommend it enough.
I'll have to check it out. You'll have to send me that link.
Definitely will. Uber Catholic, by the way. He's Uber Catholic, but Grant is not.
Okay.
He had a quote on a Slurp Gang. I'm not Catholic. I just think to write about everything. Which was me about a year ago. But anyway.
All right.
Let's get. So, do you have anything you want to add about love before we move on to the next beats?
No. I think Pausanias is next.
Yeah, let me see if I can read the name. This is the doctor one, correct?
This is the no. This is the guy who talks about the difference between noble and base love. This is the guy who gets into.
Yes,
should you have a boy or a teenager?
Okay, yeah, I do have something I want to say about this, about good and base love. I want to draw a distinction between carnal love and higher love. So I'm going to draw these distinctions. Carnal love is real. You see a physical, and you're like, I want to fuck that. You know, that's just a very base genetic reaction to things. Just because it's natural does not mean it's good. There is a distinction.
Yeah.
And there's somebody like I like the focus he has on the level, not the under the receiver, for lack of a better term, the bottom. Who is like if he sells out for rewards or for money, he reveals his true character and cannot be trusted.
Right.
There is something to this about like all monoculture is so focused on power dynamics that we don't look at the effects of the younger. It is fair because he's young, because we still don't blame the young for situations, but there is something to that. Someone is like, okay, if you're 16 years old and you sleep with your teacher for an A, that kind of reveals a character.
Mhm.
You know, if you're in college and you're 18, you sleep with your professor for the past the class, that reveals your character.
Yep.
It also reveals the weakness of the professor who should know better, but both sides were weak, and I think that's something that we ignore due to our focus on power hierarchies in today's culture.
Yeah, we don't. Someone always has to be higher than the other, and we don't stop to consider. No, they're both bad.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
At your former college, there is a lady there. Everyone does not learn like so, and she teaches a class where she says Eve was right to eat the apple as a punishment for Adam because Adam power raped her, and that David power raped Bathsheba. Now the second one I'm actually willing to have a negotiation discussion on.
yeah,
The first one I am not, because in David's case, he sent her husband off to war and he was a king. That is like borderline threatening.
In David's case, I think. I mean, there's a pretty easy modern comparison of Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. Of hey, there's a very clear and obvious power dynamic going on that's probably involved here. With Adam and Eve,
no.
I can't. What is the if you care to elaborate, what is her reasoning behind that position?
So I heard about this from a friend who took the class, so I'm not directly aware of the knowledge. Now, the way he explained it, her reasoning is that because Adam was created first and given dominion, Eve, he had a power stance above Eve, and that any sex they had, it never elaborates on consent. But at the same time, did they even have sex? I don't know, because they weren't supposed to be multiplying. And sex, like Augustine had a huge emphasis on Adam could make his penis erect at will, but never did because it would be immoral. So Augustine's weird, and I love him for it.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, one of my favorites. I'm reading the Confessions and City of God now, and it's just like, but there is I don't. But even if he did do that, I don't think introducing sin into the word is necessarily the answer. Because also, if it was rape, it would be sin before that. So it's not to introduce. Like, for him to rape her, that is a sin. Therefore,
right,
the argument contradicts itself.
It contradicts itself, and that is, in my opinion, a very anti-feminist view of the relationship between Adam and Eve. Like, if you look, I'm going to get my words wrong here because they don't mean what they should mean in the Protestant theology that I run in. There's a patriarchal view of marriage, a complementarian, an egalitarian, and something else. And if you look at the words used in the book of Genesis, when God creates Adam and Eve in the garden, they are on a level with each other. There isn't one who's set above the other. The word
of this is that when God makes Eve, it pulls from the rib, which is the center of Adam, to Eve. And it's not like he pulled from the foot, which was below, or from the head, which was high. He pulled from the center,
right?
Elaborating equality between them.
And the word that he uses for helper, that word is the same word that God uses for himself when he's talking about his relationship with Israel. It's not a helper like a housemaid who's going to clean up around and like help you out a little. It is like life-saving aid is the kind of help that's being given. I read a book on it, and it's like the image in your head should be Gandalf and the Rohirrim riding in at Helm's Deep to save it in Lord of the Rings. Yes. That should be the kind of help you're thinking of that God makes Eve to be. And so saying, well, Adam was in this position of power over her the entire time, I think lessers Eve a significant amount. Which is ironic considering she was probably thinking the opposite when she came up with that.
Absolutely. Complete sidetrack. I have a friend who wants to join the Catholic Church, and he knew I was into it, and his family was very against it, and they were all coming over basically to try to talk him out of it. And he invited me over to join him for dinner to help him like defend his reasoning. And of course,
Oh, boy.
me being stupid was like, hell yeah, I'll come argue with your family for you.
Yeah.
Terrible mistake, because I ended up making his mom cry. I didn't do anything aggressive. I just asked 2 questions.
What were the questions?
We were talking about praying to saints, and see, doesn't that lessen Jesus' impact on what he can do for you by praying with other people? I'm like, have you ever asked someone to pray for you?
Mm-hmm.
And that was enough.
Yep.
I was just very simple, and she was just like, and she started like breaking down. I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But what is the uncle was saying, you guys are sexist. You guys hate women. I'm like, Mary, Mother of God. I mean, you can't in the same argument say you guys worship Mary and then you hate women. I don't see how you can say both of them. I mean, don't worship Mary, obviously. But at the same
And you
time,
also don't hate women.
You also don't hate women. I mean, I don't get the argument. It's like, you guys won't allow women pastors, but we have places for them called nuns. Like there is benefits. Like I don't get the argument that Catholics are sexist. It was very weird to me, given all the history around it.
I'm definitely not Catholic, but I also don't agree with most of the Protestant I have my own arguments against Catholicism and the standard Protestant ones. I'm like, no, those are dumb arguments. That's not how you argue against what they're doing.
Yeah, it's like, I don't mind having a good objection to what I believe, because I enjoy a good argument. But when it's like, when the objections are so Catholic wearing a NASA hat, and those Rob, you don't tell me your space is fake, guy too. Come on, Rob, there's just too many.
Space isn't fake. It's just on the other side of the firmament.
I'm not engaging in this. Anyway, back to the 2 kinds of love. Okay. Good and bad. This was not the doctor. This was the.
This is the lawyer kind of guy.
Okay, I really don't have much to say about it, because like what he says is so like some of the things they say is profound for the time, but it also like it's soaked into modern culture. Like our idea of the other half is basically created inside the speech of the next guy, and so it's like some of these things are just like, yeah, at the time it was like, wow, this is really deep and profound. Now it's seeped into the culture so much it's not really not what we're talking about really.
Yeah.
Let's just bounce into the next guy, who was the comedian, basically.
It was the doctor next, right?
Oh, it was the doctor.
They flipped because the comedian had the hiccups.
Yes, that is right. That is right. That was such a weird thing to throw in, but it made it feel more real. You know, that's what I like about Plato. It's like he's not just telling straight philosophy.
It is a bit
of a narrative.
Yeah,
I enjoy it. Oh, you go first. Do you have anything you want to say about?
I liked what he said. Again, I'm viewing this through a Christian lens of, and you kind of see where, like if you have the idea of God is love in your worldview, I like where he's going with the love is in everything aspect, because as I see God as love, I agree with that because I see God in everything. Was my kind of take. That this speech is where I started reading it, and I went, okay, where am I going to read God into this? And that's where this is where it started for me in the symposium.
I like that a lot. Let me see if I can get to. Let's see if I find the speech. I don't like highlighting my books, but I have the compendium of the complete works of Plato hardcover coming in the mail tomorrow, and so I easily could have just highlighted this one. I didn't think about it until after I was done reading it. So I can find it. Okay, so his idea is basically that there were 3 genders, and there was the man, woman.
That's the comedian.
I am getting so confused about the order of these people.
We're on Eryximachus.
Yes.
That's how I'm going to pretend to pronounce that.
Find him, because I'm getting errors. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to do that one. I really have nothing to add about this one. Like the later ones I have more to add about, but some of these early ones, it's kind of like...
Yeah. I think the early ones seem to be Plato kind of just establishing what everyone agrees on before he starts dropping bombs.
pretty much. There's not much to people. Again, people, this is a very short book. You can probably read it in one night. It's
Oh,
only
yeah. It's a
like mine-
2-hour audiobook.
yeah, and you probably put it like times 2 speed, get out of it, like no problem.
Yeah.
And there's like there are people literally like because it's a dialogue. There are people actually now on YouTube like dramatizations of it, and so
Yep.
there's
That's what I listen to, just on YouTube.
nice. I tried to follow along with my audiobook, but I noticed there are 2 different translations, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna stick to one. So let's kind of go off of. Let's kind of talk about physical love as opposed to the higher love, we could say.
Mhm.
There's a view in early Protestantism about we're all religious, so we're gonna kind of look at it through religious lens. I don't want to turn into any kind of debate about anything, but let's contrast physical love and higher love in a Christian sense, real quick.
Okay.
How would you, as a Protestant, define higher love and physical love in these 2 different categories?
So, I think the actual distinction you have to make is what's love and what is attraction. I think that's the distinction you have to make because, and then you can split love into the 4 loves, but the big thing is attraction, and attraction can be physical, but it can also be personality and whatever. Like I'm attracted, not physically, but I am attracted to my friends. That's why they're my friends. And then, so the baser love would just be in that terminology. I would just call it physical attraction. And there's no compulsion to act on it or turn it into anything more, but that attraction can spark into anything else. Like my youth pastor, I'm going to share his story. He saw his now wife. He went to youth group in college, to a church group in college, and went, I want to date that girl. Saw her from across the hall. Didn't know anything about her. Thought she was cute. And that's just physical attraction.
Yeah.
They would call it the baser love in this, but I wouldn't call it love per se. And that's how I would make that distinction as a Protestant.
I would say like attraction, desire, and love are 3 different things you have to categorize here. And for Catholics, it's how do I put this? I'm gonna just focus on marital, beginning to end, from like dating to marriage.
Okay.
I'm going to like save the physical attraction. Like that's just for me, physical attraction is biological from evolution. Like saying you have to pass on your genes, you have to fuck what you can. Like I'm gonna draw that as a distinction between good, love ordered towards the good. That's how I'm gonna draw the distinction. The idea of love ordered to good, like you should be one. You want to be fruitful and multiply. You want to pass on your limbs. You want to take part in God's creation. You want someone who is going to be pious and holy with you and help you get through life, and at the same time call you to be better, but also be able to accept that you are not going to be better. You can be better, but you're not going to be good, and that is going to work with you and improve with you. And the idea of falling out of like Catholics don't believe in divorce, or a very rare circumstance we get annulments.
Yeah,
like you marry for a long time, and so there's a big emphasis on like falling out of love is dumb. You have to constantly evolve with the person to stay in love with the person.
Agreed. Yeah.
And so there's a big like. For getting married in Catholic Church, the stuff you gotta go through for 6 months of like RCIA type classes, and then if you want to even get an annulment or even sing about it, it's like what 6 months to a year of like counseling you have to go through to try to find some loophole for the annulment.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things in Catholic covenant like marriage stuff that if you don't, as a wife won't have sex, or the man won't have sex, it's grounds for an annulment because the only reason to get married, but not just be dating, is to basically be fruitful and multiply. And so if you don't have sex with the wife, that is grounds for an annulment.
Yeah.
But I 100% agree with that. If you're not going to have sex and it's going to be a perpetual, like sex is what divides dating and marriage in a religious sense. And so I would, what do you think? I think that's fair? I think that's a fair distinction?
I'd say there's the covenant that goes with it.
Yeah. Well, sex is, in proper sense, is a covenant.
Yeah.
I'm conflating the 2 terms, but yeah.
Yeah. For the 90% agree with that. I would just add a little.
what was it? You ever? Probably not because you're Protestant, but have you ever read Scott Hahn?
No. He's the Presbyterian who turned his church Catholic on accident, right?
Yeah. Like he said, he felt bad about a lot of things he was doing because he felt like he was keeping secrets. So he became a youth pastor and inadvertently converted 14 people to the Catholic Church. So they weren't a big fan of him because he wasn't even Catholic yet. Like they converted before he did.
That's funny.
Yeah. He is very big on covenant theology,
Mhm.
and basically he convinces Presbyterian church to do the communion every Sunday. And he counts all of it in covenant theology and renewing the marital vows. And so we have some really interesting. He has a Bible commentary focused on from Genesis to Revelations, all on covenant theology and typology. And so I am very. This is fun. That's very fun to me and mind blowing. But like sex is important. Like it is literally the reason to get married. Like if you whisper like you can love someone like as a friend. Like I love my friend. We have great conversations. The only difference between a friend and a girlfriend is the act of fucking. Like I would say that. I would say like everything I would do with my girlfriend and assail and confide in and talk to and go through life with, I can do with my best friend. The only difference is my best friend could be a woman. It could be the same principle. The only thing that draws the distinction between marriage and love is the one everlasting side of it. Like you get in, you don't get out. Because it's easy to cut off a friendship. And the act of sex. And I think those are very important things that need to be emphasized when people go forward with things. I think there's like, I also think it finds a way. It is a good idea. It's a good thing about it. How do I put this? It takes sex from being a yucky carnal thing into being a holy thing. And I won't use it holy because I can't think of a better word, but in between carnal and holy. I guess pious, maybe. I don't know.
I've seen and read about sex as an act of worship. So I think that falls in. I think pious would be.
Yeah. This is why I want to learn Latin. I feel like I can just start throwing in Latin words. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I found a class in Bartow that teaches Latin.
Ooh, I might pop in.
Hmm?
I might pop in for something like that.
We should learn Latin. That'd be that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Do an entire podcast just in Latin, just to troll people. Like we're gonna do Confessions by Augustine in Latin.
I think that'll help our mayoral candidacy also if we just give speeches in Latin.
Yeah, oh, that'd be so much fun. Let's focus on like the bad kind of love for a little bit. We talk about how great it is and how it causes you to be greater. Let's talk about the bad kinds of love because those that do exist. Would you say? I wouldn't say love is good. Would you say a bad kind of love is pure desire and not focus on the everlasting or the loving part of it?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I think it quickly devolves into desire. I'm trying to think of the right. I guess it can devolve into any of the real of what you'd call the deadly sins as it falls apart because it becomes. I think the song Jesse's Girl, and I just listened to that and I'm like, dude, lay off. It's someone else's girlfriend. Like, this isn't endearing. You're a creep. Kind of like the song by The Police where it's every breath you take, I'll be watching you. And I'm like, and I'm just like, how did these songs fly by back in the? I don't get it. I don't know. But yeah, I think calling it just desire, but not desire for
the betterment of one.
Yeah,
for the bad love is selfish, and you're not desiring to be good for the other, but you're desiring to be good for you.
And I wouldn't even call it the good. You're desiring the happiness of you rather than the good of the beloved.
There's joy, there's good, and then we need to find a word for carnal good, for physical pleasure. I need to find a word to couch that in. This is why I love reading like Aristotelian or Thomistic metaphysics. They use the same definitions for saying like the key to good metaphysics is the same words for everything. So you can you read it if you know the jargon, you just read it fluently, and it's great. Ayn Rand, I gotta say, Ayn Rand, Virtue of Selflessness, and Ayn Rand on Love have some very interesting ideas. You ever listen to Ayn Rand's speech on love?
I have not. I've not read anything by them.
He gave a speech on love about loving selflessly. And there's a very great line in it. There's two great lines. You do love selflessly because you love what someone can do for you, and you love what you do for them. And then if a groom walked up to his bride on the wedding day and said, "I am doing this as a purely selfless act. I am getting nothing out of it. It is purely for you. It is all about you. I have no enjoyment or pleasure in any of this," he'd slap him and leave. Rightfully so. There has to be a selfless love on both sides because you love how they make you feel. And there's like you should feel good about doing good for others.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there should be something in there that thinks he get again. Ayn Rand was so Aristotelian that some of the things he gets like okay, so you know Jesus said love your neighbor as thyself.
Mm-hmm.
So in that is you have to be able to love yourself before you can help your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
That's Ayn Rand. You have to be able to love thyself first and make sure you are better off before you try to do it. And then Jordan Peterson, clean room before taking on the wood.
Yeah.
There's a lot in Rand I love, and a lot I just read. I'm like, what the fuck were you on?
C.S. Lewis has a similar thing. He talks about the difference between selfishness and self-centeredness, and how those relate to pride. Because he talks about you can have the person with the lowest self-esteem in the world, and they are still self-centered. And he considers selfishness to not be necessarily bad. Everyone should be selfish but self-centeredness is where everything is just focused on you all the time. That's the bad. Yeah. And he's
Wayne was very similar with that. Like, see, someone said you just want people to be like paying for their coffee and ignore the guy bleeding out on the streets. Like I abhor that kind of, how's he put it, nihilism, I think he called it, or sociopathic tendencies.
Yeah.
Like Wayne got so much right, but she was such a bitch. Like, see, like, did you ever hear what happened with her and Rothbard about the split?
Mm-mm.
They were at the dinner table, and Rothbard's wife was Kristen, and Rand asked the wife to repudiate Christ, and the wife said no, and then she said, "Rothbard, repudiate your wife," and he paused, looked at his wife, and said, "Let's get out of here. This bitch is crazy."
An appropriate response.
I mean, maybe flipping the table would have been appropriate too, but it's like there's so much with Wayne. Like, she hated Lewis. Like, she wrote letters just hating on Lewis. And I imagine I've never read anything about Lewis besides The Problem of Pain.
Okay.
You seem to have read Lewis. What book would you recommend?
His autobiography is Surprised by Joy. I liked it. He leaves out the part where he had an affair, which I think is funny. He just writes, and there was one thing that happened here that I promised I would never talk about. And then after he died, his brother was like, "Oh yeah, he had an affair." But to start with, I like his sci-fi. I think if you are a language nerd, his sci-fi is really good. It's an obvious self-insert, which I appreciate. He's not trying to be subtle. First one is Out of the Silent Planet. Super, super fun books. Some really cool philosophy is just embedded into the story in a really good way. The third book in the trilogy is called That Hideous Strength, or The Tortured Planet. Reading it right now again. And the monologue that the bad guy gives as like explaining the evil plan and everything they're doing is like a page out of an essay that C.S. Lewis wrote called The Abolition of Man. So if you want to read it in fiction, the Space Trilogy is where I'd start if you're looking for the philosophy. If you want to read it in nonfiction, The Abolition of Man is an excellent, excellent read.
Yeah, I'm trying to go through the I guess the 20th century or 20th century type philosophers. I'm listening to my first thing by Chesterton.
Okay.
I don't know.
I just started him also.
I don't know. I never really. How do I put this? When I read The Problem of Pain, Not Problem of Pain. Yeah, Problem of Evil. Or whatever one was about,
The Problem with Pain is Lewis's.
Pain,
yeah.
I didn't find anything new, but at the same time, I feel like every argument he made basically like got entered into the Christian dogma. Like it seeped into everything, and then you've heard it, but you've never heard it as good as he makes it.
Yeah.
But you've also heard people make it terrible, like Ben Shapiro will use Ed Fraser's arguments for resistance to God, but Ben Shapiro is terrible at making them. And so it's like you're butchering what was probably one of the best arguments since the best versions of Aquinas, and you're making people respond to that word saying they've debunked it, and you're doing more harm than good.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel about most Christians who quote Lewis.
The thing with Lewis is he has two audiences when he writes, and he is not writing to both of them at the same time. Some books are for one audience and some books are for the other, is kind of what I've gone. So like the Chronicles of Narnia is for Christians. Like it's not a book to like, it's a fairy tale. He wanted to write an English mythology, and to him, England is Christian. So it is a Christian mythos. In one of his letters, he actually writes how Aslan isn't an allegory for Jesus. Aslan is Jesus from an alternate dimension. Like that was his position. He was like, no, I didn't make up and copy Jesus. That's Jesus from somewhere else. Then Mere Christianity is not for it. It's a Christian apologetic, but it was not addressed to Christians. He actually gave those as a radio show during World War II. It was the second most listened to radio show in the West when it went on air. He was described as the second most recognized voice in England. Only Winston Churchill was more popular for people to listen to. And so like people in the front were listening to him, people in England all over were listening. And so it was addressed to everyone. It was not like, hey, this is going to completely blow your mind on how you think about Jesus. It was no, I'm talking to a non-believer and I'm starting from there.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've started the Screw Tape letters, but I haven't finished them yet. Have you read the Screw Tape letters?
I have. I really like them. If you're an audiobook guy on YouTube, John Cleese from Monty Python narrated it.
Oh.
And did a really good job.
Well, I'll have to have you on for the Screw Tape letter podcast.
Okay.
You'll be becoming my C.S. Lewis guy, by the way. Like when I need a C.S. Lewis part of his stuff, I'm gonna be texting you now.
I'm good with that.
Let's do it. Yeah, there's something about those 20th century philosophers that like they were responding to the beginnings of what I would call a new atheist movement. But at the same time, their arguments got so popularized that like a lot of apologetics until after the new atheist age had basically ended weren't that good.
No.
Like the best guy they had was William Lane Craig, who was good. I like William Lane Craig. He has a great argument for God's existence. They also Demi Akin has a great rebuttal to it. I think it's better. But like there wasn't any good like responses to Dawkins, or like, you had Kidham. That was a guy debating Harris and Dawkins. Yeah, not what you want. And I feel like I inadvertently end up blaming Chesterton and Lewis because they had good arguments, but they got so popularized and watered down that they were never articulated as good as they did.
They got popularized, watered down, and then they both died before they could debate anyone.
Yes, and they got ignored. And it's kind of it makes C.S. Lewis is viewed as a Narnia guy, and it's like
it's like that was his kid's book. Read his books for adults. I mean, again, I love his quote also where I put aside childish things, including the desire to be grown up. I still love the Narnia books. I can read one in about a day, though.
Yeah.
Like, it's a couple hours to read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I love it, but that's not what I'm basing anything philosophically off of.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Do you have anything you want to say about oh my god, I forgot his name again.
The doctor?
No, I mean, there's nothing weird to say about him.
Then the comedian who said people got cut in half, and
let's talk about the comedian guy and the idea of the other half and the soulmate. I don't like the idea of a soulmate. I don't like the idea of one perfect person out there for you.
I don't think soulmates. If soulmates are real, then they don't matter that much.
Mm.
And if they're not real, then they don't matter at all.
Yeah.
Uh,
The idea of a soulmate to me is like it places an unnecessary burden to think you're gonna find perfection,
mhm.
and that it's like there's a big saying. It's like you have to love me for who I am.
Yeah.
That should not be how love works. You should both accept the faults and want to like. I like the idea of the other half because it's like you're gonna find someone who fills in your gaps.
Mhm.
And you can become a better person. You can become a whole person that's a better person.
Yeah.
I don't think that necessarily has to be tied into soulmate language. Soulmate language implies there's only one perfect person out there for you. I don't think that's the case. I think the idea of perfect unions to me are impossible because perfection does not exist outside of Jesus.
Mhm.
And that you have to be willing to find someone who fits you, who is your opposite puzzle piece.
Yeah.
And you guys form a better pizza. I think that's a better language that counts it in. Somewhat of the language we use around love places unnecessary ideas upon people who end up trying to attain the impossible.
Yeah. There's the comic where it's like they're puzzle pieces, and there's two sitting on the couch that are like a basic piece. Like one's just the normal like socket, and the other is the opposite piece. And they're like, "Did you find anyone yet, son?" And then the son walks in, and he's got like all this, like the most intricate puzzle piece you've ever seen in your life, and he's like, "No."
Yeah.
And I think looking for something like that kind of, if you're looking for that, you'll never find it because over time, like it's over your entire life of being married to someone that you become that fit for each other.
Yeah.
You're not just going to mesh with someone perfectly instantly on everything for your entire life. And if you did, that'd be boring.
Yeah.
Like my wife and I, we've been married 3 years, and it's a process of that. And I love the process of it. And
looking in the corner. Is he still there?
No, I was checking for her. I love you. I really do, though. She is absolutely awesome, and getting to spend my life with her is just it's the best thing besides saving me. It's the best thing God has ever done for me. Is putting her in my life. And I don't think if we just were perfect to be together all the time, it would be boring. That's why it's sanctification over time in the process of salvation. I think the same principle applies.
And there's a flip side to this that is also deadly, in my opinion, is that the conflict and excitement is not the same as love. You may love the excitement, but you may not love him. You love what he causes around you. Or, like I have a friend whose sister is crazy. She is a crazy person. Her and her boyfriend are constantly abusing each other, putting each other in jail. And last week he'd been 2 years sober off of heroin, and because of the argument, he relapsed. So this ridiculous. They should not be together. They claim to love each other. They love the excitement that relationship brings. That is not the same thing. Like conflict can be like not conflict, but growing together and figuring out how to merge and become better is not the same as like constantly fighting. It's like, oh, we're working things out. Like, no, you hate each other, and you just are loving the excitement that comes with that. There is a distinction.
Yeah, you want someone who will better you, not an adversary.
Absolutely. What about government issued waifus? Listen, man, if they want to give me a sick anime check, so I don't have to search anymore, I ain't gonna argue. You'll see me waving a Biden flag. Okay, I might become a statist.
Nope.
You're not an anime guy like yourself?
No. I can say I watched Naruto on my old box TV because it was on the basic cable that I plugged into the wall. And I watched like the same, like season 1, I think was it back when I was a kid. That's all the anime I've seen.
There's a bunch of anime myself. I'm an anime nerd. I'm a weeb. Identify it. I'm a weeb. I'm a Catholic libertarian weeb. What are the odds of me finding a girlfriend?
Well, keep that hidden, and they go way up.
The dinner with explosions of Get the Helicopter. Man, fuck you, Goldie. What was I gonna say? No, so I'm on a lot of dating apps because it's not that I'm bad at talking to women, is I don't go anywhere to meet people. And so I reside myself with you can't also meet people nowadays.
Yep.
Like, okay, I'm gonna give my little rant here. Feminism has ruined so much shit. You can't approach a woman and talk to her without the possibility of sexual assault being rape. Hey, Micah's here. Love this dude. He's back.
It's pretty great.
He is coming on once he finishes reading some Peter Kreeft, or once I finish reading, he's coming on to talk about one of Peter Kreeft's Socratic dialogues, and that's going to be so much fun. That you can't like I've approached women to talk to them, and I've literally heard this is sexual assault. Like this is not you can't just approach people anymore because everything is couched in hierarchies and not legitimate hierarchies like I wish. And it's like you like at the same time, women at the same time will want someone who is like aggressive and demeaning and dangerous. You know? Like I have friends who literally say they want to fix somebody. Like they look for someone who's broken to fix. But someone comes at you with and your idea of what is a problem of sexual assault, and you want to ignore them. So you can't have both ways. Which one is it? It's so this is why I like dating apps, is that you know what they are there for. They are there for the conversation. You know, you can't text someone and then like, hey, they respond, this is sexual assault through text. I mean, they might do that in the future. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised if that ended up happening.
Yeah, I can't speak to a lot of that. I've known my wife since we were both 6 years old.
Wonderful.
So I got very little for you there. But yes, I would agree that third wave, probably second wave too, feminism have just been a disaster for anything. And then you look at the people who preach that, and then they are alone at 30, and what am I going to do?
Yep.
So it's unfortunately our generation has to bear the brunt of it, but it's a ideology that can't continue.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the dying days of it.
Yeah.
I just hope it's not. I feel like I was born like that. If I was born 2002, I think I'd be more white pilled about it.
Mm-hmm.
What was I gonna say about it? So a lot of women, especially in Florida, love the Myers-Briggs and star sign nonsense.
Oh, MBTI is astrology for smart people.
Mm-hmm. And so I have, for purely Machiavellian reasons, I have my Myers-Briggs and my star sign in my bio.
What is your Myers-Briggs? Out of curiosity.
I am a INFJ. No, I'm one of those guys who bounces back and puts an ENTP and INFJ.
Okay.
And the reason for that is the INFJ people are extroverted, so they really are ENTPs. But a lot of ENTPs end up getting INFJ on the test because this girl explained to me over the course of dinner. ENTPs have social anxiety, and so they get really anxious and nervous about their extroverted ways, and they end up reverting to an INFJ. And so they bounce back and forth. It's your shadow type. Fucking Bakugan bullshit.
I mean, Jung was pretty with it, but now it is just astrology for smart people.
Yeah. I think astrology has more of a basis and more matter than I think the Myers-Briggs test do.
Okay. Macro astrology, I am 90% on board with.
Nice, Micah.
personal astrology of what is your sign and that all crock. But hey, the moon did something weird yesterday and now everyone's acting crazy. Yes, 100%. Jupiter showed up in a weird place last night. Yes, that is why we had the earthquakes. I'm all on board for that.
Aquinas believes in astrology.
Yeah. I watched.
There's a reason behind it, I guess.
I watched a video and it was talking about all of the the medieval doctors and monks' explanations for the Black Death, and they were like, we had like more earthquakes than we've ever recorded in history, and noxious gas got released out of the earth, and that's why all these people are dying. And I'm like, that makes sense. Like, a lot of bad stuff is happening.
I love old doctors and people just look at the world around them and go, okay, reasonably, what happened? Yeah. I think that was much better than people having to find all the empirical data.
Yeah.
Reason trumps empiricism. Okay.
The idea of what month you were born in.
So to me, I get it, somewhat, because it's nearly like the temperature and the where you were surrounded around your birthday months and what you were born into, and people's personality is affected by nature around them.
Yeah,
that is a proven saying, and I include stars in the nature around you and the light they provide, and so they're all like on a micro level. I do see there being implications for, okay, you were born in this month, these things happened around you. That makes sense to me. That is a logical extraction, but the idea that it's because of the and when you get too deep into the occult reasons for it,
right?
Oh, one of my friends, I love him to death. One of my best friends, raised Protestant, become agnostic, thinks all of it's a crop. You know, never makes sense. His girlfriend had a friend over, who did tarot card readings, and he was like all bought into it. I'm like, dude, be consistent. If you're gonna be spiritual, just be Catholic. Like, don't do this like midway point where you do astrology and Ian Myers-Briggs and tarot card readings. Just commit or don't commit. Do you believe in the spirits or not?
Yeah.
Like, the atheist agnostics who are not materialists. You ever read any of Sam Harris?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so he was my favorite atheist for a while until I actually understood good religion stuff. Because he had the book on the moral landscape, which is basically uses science to argue for objective morality, and it's basically natural law. It's like we can use reason and philosophy to determine the ultimate goods of things and use it to construct a moral landscape of what's to happen around us. But it's not a natural law because
because natural law points to God.
Yes, and then he also made a book called Waking Up, an atheist guide to spirituality, where he talks about how he would meditate and take drugs and feel this immense love from somewhere else. And it's like, yes, God reaching out to you, dumb fucking idiot.
Don't mess around with that pharmakeia. That'll mess you up.
What was it? I can't remember what I saw a video with Richard Dawkins, who was one of those, like, in my opinion, the cringiest of atheists. It isn't right breakdown when he was questioned on William McCraig. Yeah, William McCraig is probably the best living Protestant apologist. Like, there's no one living who compares. I mean, I would have to say maybe Ed Fazo and Trent Horn. I think those are maybe like the best living on. There's a lot of great ones when it comes to counter-denomination, counter-religion stuff. But when it comes to pure against atheism, Craig and Ed Fazos are just... You don't win. You can't. They're so logical and reasonable. Like, who is your favorite living apologist? Before we get back into the book itself,
I don't follow much living apologists. Like, if you asked me 2 years ago, it was Ravi Zacharias, and then he died, and then all that.
Ooh.
Yeah, all that came out, which, pretty big.
I still love this book.
Yeah, like
I ignored the news stories because I want to ignore them for the sake of enjoying his bookstore.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, I don't think someone's evil actions. Just like I hate the arguments of like Michael knows at a book club on the intellectuals, where he just basically goes through the personal life of the intellectuals and uses their force to write off their ideas. I don't like that. The ideas stand on reason.
That's ad hominem.
Yes.
Ad hominem.
Ad hominem. Something like that.
And so the arguments still stand. And once you get into that, you start weighing sins against each other. Because if you say, oh, well, he did that, so we can't accept any of his ideas, well, everyone has sinned, and all sins are equal.
Yeah.
So are you saying that? So if you're saying that we can't use any of his ideas because of this, then we can't use anyone's ideas.
We have Jesus, and that's it.
Yeah.
Which some people would probably like more.
Yeah, some people might go for that. To which I'll say, all right, when are you going to start cutting off your hands?
Yeah, I mean, Origin, my favorite search fossil. I put a meme up a while ago when it was a film of Dustin. You saw it?
Yes.
I love that meme so much. I mean, the fact that Origin isn't a saint kind of bugs me. I have my issues with him not being a saint. He's not perfect. He had some falsities, but Aquinas also didn't believe in like baptizing the young and giving them communion. So it's not like everyone's perfect. I think you could absolutely make Origin a saint.
I just say make none of them saints and call it good.
Origin's. I don't know why it is, but I absolutely love reading Origin. He will admit later, he made it later in life that he should not have what he did. For people who don't know, he apparently was a horny motherfucker and decided to take a dull rock and cut his own dick off.
I mean, that's
old school.
Yeah, that's what Jesus says. That's what Paul said. Like, there's a biblical backing.
Oh, Micah, I cannot wait to talk to you. It's gonna be a fun podcast. I can't wait to talk to this guy. We're gonna have to do a long one. It's Micah. Okay, so let's get into Agathon's speech a little bit.
Okay.
He was the last one he talked before Socrates came in there, and like the asshole he is, God, I love Socrates. You see why they killed him.
Oh,
like you read him and you're like, it makes sense they killed you.
Well, also you see why when they voted to kill him, it was a pretty close vote. When they voted that he was guilty or not guilty, it was a close vote. But when they voted to kill him after deciding he was guilty, it was not a close vote.
Yes. Socrates. You ever hear Jordan? Before we get into it, you ever hear Jordan Peterson's take on Socrates dying?
No.
So he says he believes Socrates had a chance to flee. He had a chance to escape. He chose to stay because, one, he was getting older, and the idea of losing your mind as a philosopher was terrifying. And he wanted to have a meaningful death, and a death that they handed the state for reason and logic is a good death.
Yeah.
And so he basically wanted it, which is why he's not at all sad about when he dies. There's this great book, The Cave in the Light by...
Yeah.
Also, have you read it?
I've seen it. I haven't read it.
I'm doing the audiobook now, and it opens with the death of Socrates. It has like the beginning of philosophy. And actually Socrates says in Peter Kree's book on it, do you have philosophers? Yes. Are they ever in danger? No, then you don't have philosophers. And I absolutely love that reasoning.
It's
like,
a good
if you
line.
are a philosopher, you should be in danger. Okay, so let's see if I can find it. Agathon. He was the guy who won the poetry contest, hosted the party, second to the last speech. I actually don't remember any of his speech at all. Do you?
No. It was short, I thought.
His death, yeah. Socrates was my first red pill on democracy. Like, he was my first guy. Like, I heard his arguments, and I'm like, oh yeah, but the counter. I tried to like argue with Socrates, and now I'm like, fucking, he's right.
No, because the state only had one counter argument. Still does.
I don't have anything to say about
Agathons.
Yeah, there's nothing to really. Again, the beginning of this is really just it's
it's all set up for Socrates.
pretty much. I feel like all of history before Greek was set up for Socrates. I gotta say, I don't like Plato too much. I'm not a Platonist by any means. But Plato has a conduit to reading Socrates, is why I like Plato. And now that Peter Creep put out these dialogues, I kind of have my Socrates outlet. So Socrates gets up after Alcibiades. I mean, not Alcibiades.
After Agathon.
Agathon, yes, after Agathon. And says, I'm sorry, but I appear to be at a disadvantage because I thought we were making speeches in praise of Eros, about Eros, and all you guys did was celebrate what the good is of love. And he basically calls them all out for never actually defining love, but it's defining what's good about love. What's God is great. And he goes through all the questioning with Alcibiades, and basically it's just a Socratic method. And even my favorite line from this book is he says, I have no argument against you, Socrates. You have no argument against the truth. It's easy to argue with Socrates.
Yes.
What an ass. I love him. So he brings up his conversation with Dionoma, who he claims is the only person who taught him all he knows about love. And I feel like in that context, there's probably more physical sides to that as well.
Yeah. Which is interesting that he learned it all from a woman.
Yeah. Based. Plato's my second web pill for a different reason. Yeah, this guy right here, people. Get yourself a bust of Socrates. I love this thing. I'm trying to find one of Plato and Aristotle also sitting and put them all side by side. They make one of Plato, they do not make one of Aristotle sitting. So I'm gonna have to have my friends 3D print it. So I kind of covered this earlier, somewhat, in the of what love is when I talk about the Catholic view of love, that love is taking part in God's creation. They kind of hint at the same reality when saying they love is the taste of the immortal. Excuse me. You have anything you want to add or say before I want to read a little bit of it?
Oh, you can go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to try to do some reading of this before we talk about Alcibiades top it in. Okay. Dionoma. But shouldn't we add, he said, that the object of their love is that they should have the good? Socrates. Yes, we should add that. Not only that, he said, but they should have the good forever. We must add that too. To sum up then, he said, love is a desire to have good forever. Which is a tie into the idea of love is passing on your genes to like, in a purely materialist sense. It is passing on your genes to the next generation so that you can continue to live out. It is a taste of the immortality. And if you view heaven as immortality, who was it? I can't remember who it was, but one of this guy said the best way to describe heaven is a non-stop orgasm. It was a weird way, but he said orgasm is what God's gift is. God. He's a weird philosopher, but I love listening to him because he's not at all clean, but he gets to the deeper meaning of everything. Again, Contra Gentiles. I can't recommend it enough. Everybody, go listen to it. But yeah, love is like even in modern culture, like it's looked down upon actually in modern culture. The idea that love is the taste of the immortal, that you only have sex to pass in your lineage, and that's selfish to bring people into this world because everyone is semi-anti-natalist at this point. Like everyone on the left is a semi-anti-natalist.
Yeah,
and there's nothing to me more stupid than anti-natalism.
That's because leftism is anti-human.
Yes. They have no sense of beauty. They have no sense of beauty or joy or love or a reason to exist. The left. So philosophically lacking.
That's because none of those good things exist without God.
Ooh, I agree. I agree to that. I agree to that. I agree to the.
And
this. And I've been going deeper into my Thomistic readings, and I am blown away by how deep, like Aquinas and Augustine, they got to the truth of things. And you read what you consider modern day philosophers. Like I listened to Sam Harris lectures recently to kind of compare, and I'm just like, if you actually talk to a scholastic, you would get destroyed. If a Scholastic came back alive today, he would mock you and destroy you and ridicule you. It would be godless right wing season. That's why I go to you an atheist.
They should.
Our symposium is going to be fun. We got an Orthodox, a Protestant, an atheist, an agnostic, and a Catholic talking about when things went wrong. That is going to be so much fun. I'm asking, do you have an argument for when things went wrong, Caleb?
I have an idea. I'm torn between two. I actually saw a quote on it today that said, if you ask the normal person today, they'll say all our problems started at World War II. If you ask someone who's read a little bit, if you ask an elite, they'll say all the problems started at World War I. And if you ask a historian, they'll say they started at the French Revolution. So the French Revolution is one of my answers, and my other one is a lot more fun.
For me, it's like, politically speaking, I would say the Enlightenment was the beginning of the end. But you wouldn't have the Enlightenment without the Reformation. But there were good aspects, I think, of the Reformation. And so I'm very torn to say, like, I don't want to say the Reformation was bad. I do have my arguments against it, my problems with it. But I think there were some things that were good out of the Reformation.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, let's, for example, I got to the arguments with a friend of mine. When marriage ceased to become a sacrament in Protestantism, they still value marriage. The Anglicans, the Lutherans, the High Calvinists, they still value marriage. But they were the first step in the devaluing of it. Mm-hmm. And so even if they still agree with me more than the modern day people, they were the first act in it. And I blame them for this. Even though they'd probably be closer to working with me on fixing it. And so it's like, do I blame where things began, even though it wasn't where it got worse? Or do I blame where it got worse? I don't know yet. That's going to be my issue.
The Reformation had its downsides, but I think the real problem was that neither side could be reconciled. Mm-hmm. I think the real fault of the Reformation was the splitting, not the need to reform and reform.
This is why I call it a Protestant revolt, and I talk to my friends, because if you want to reform, you would work together and try to reform, make things better. But they just left, and so I call it more of a revolt, which I think is fair, and that's even. I mean, I'm not gonna say Luther reformed anything because he left.
Right. Although he left because he got kicked out.
Yeah. And I mean, I could read Luther and have some like, okay, I see where he's coming from. I can't say that was Calvin. I find zero value in Calvin.
You know what? I'll give this to Calvin. He is closer to Augustine than Luther is.
Okay, I will say that. People who read Augustine as a proto-Protestant, I will cede that over to. Luther's favorite thinker was William of Ockham.
I didn't know that.
He loved William of Ockham, who I think was excommunicated by the church the same year Aquinas became a saint. And Scott Hahn has a book where he basically traces all of our problems back to William of Ockham.
Interesting.
And so I am reading it now. That might say what my answer is by the time we do the symposium.
I would say the Henry VIII and starting the Anglican Church was probably worse than the Reformation.
I can see that. I can see that very well. We're just talking past each other. I know these in debates of the kind. I get caught up on these things. Yep, Michael, you hit the nail on the head again.
Yeah, no one wants to step into each other's worldview when they have those debates. You can't convince someone of your worldview from your worldview.
Yeah. And my problem with so much of contemporary philosophy is it doesn't say anything. Like, what was it? I can't remember who it was, but so many people, when they get into philosophy, they want to explain the deeper meaning of things. They just go deep into biology.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, if I put a glass against the wall and you say, Caleb, why did you do that? I say, well, because the neurons fired in the brain that cause the solar to swing to break the glass and the glass shattered. That's not an answer. That's an explanation for how it happened. That's not a why did it happen.
Yeah.
There's a complete lack of the deeper meaning because most of them are materialists. I don't like to do it.
Jordan Jordan Peterson gets into that. And I'm like, just take one more step, man.
I love how he says "man" and he just talks to people like, "You're not there yet, man." Like I love his attitude towards it all.
Mhm.
It's great. Even if I don't necessarily, I don't like him when it comes to like the subjectivity of truths. I think Sam Harris was better on objective truths, but I don't know how Sam Harris came to those ideas from a pure materialist standpoint. That debate was so weird to me because I'm like, I hate one of you. One of you are clearly smarter than the other one, but one of you seems to be stuck with this weird modernist mix of things. I couldn't get into it. Okay. Do you have anything you want to say about Socrates and Keats? We kind of talked about Love and Zinwo and barely touched the symposium, but that's fine.
So Socrates' speech. There's his. There it is. This is where I really started, like I said with the other one, where I started reading God into it. This is where I got into, I think it's probably the subject of the Socrates meets Jesus. And we talked about it before, where there's the Catholic argument that like Aristotle's in heaven.
Yeah.
I actually agree with that worldview that people can, I think
at the end.
I think we're going to be very surprised by the amount of people who are in heaven that we think shouldn't be, and the people who aren't there that we thought should be.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
At the end. And so I think here we kind of get the same thing where I think Socrates gets into where Socrates, like when he's describing love, I think you can attribute the characteristic of God to what he's describing, but love is the only word he has for it.
Yeah.
Where he says it's the desire, the good and the fair in what it wants. Okay, well, what does God do? He doesn't desire the good and the fair for himself because he had that before creation. He didn't need to do anything to get that. But he created so that there was something else to get the good and the fair. Because he is love, he created what he could love.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my takeaway from Socrates's speech that he gave, of like he's almost there, but he has no idea what words he's supposed to use to describe what he's talking about.
That's what I feel a lot about Greek philosophy. It's like if Greek philosophy, when the Greek philosophy period happened 500 AC instead of BC, they would all be probably saints.
Yep.
They'd all be the greatest, and they all are the greatest philosophers. Which is why I'm very compelled by the argument of Aristotle and these people all in heaven. Because I think they were, through reason alone, they reached the truth. Which is, I mean, think about how much, like, you ever read Aristotle's Ethics?
No.
Okay. So a lot of it is basically the golden mean of things. Aquinas is adopted heavily.
Yes. So I know that concept. I haven't read it.
That is my favorite philosophical concept ever, I think. I absolutely love the golden mean. And I know people who, I'm like, if you would read this and incorporate the idea of a golden mean, you would be so much happier.
Yeah.
I think I want to see more real quick. Where was the all or nothing attitude came around that you think? Like, the idea, like, okay, let's use booze for example. I have a friend terrified of booze. Thinks he'll drink and become an alcoholic immediately. He won't even go to weddings that serve alcohol.
Okay.
And to me, is he won't go to weddings that serve it. It is more like the alcohol controls him and a reverse effect than if he was an alcoholic. Because he's letting it control how much of his action. He has no willpower to resist temptation. His only resistance is to run away. If he had to go to mean, like, for example, I think I have my drinking pretty down. I know 2 glasses, that's my max. Right there. After 2, it starts to become bad. It starts to get into sin. That's the go to mean of it. And people are kind of stuck in this all or nothing attitude of things. Yeah. And you get that. You can't, there is no, you had a great experience the other day about sin, is there is no excess in sin. Sin itself is excess.
Yeah.
Or something like that. It's like there are things that are not sin that become sin in excess.
So I think that goes back just to we have a culture descended from the Puritans, like
Mhm.
Western America, Western Christianity. Like the Puritans are they're the proto evangelical in America.
Yeah.
Bless you. Um, so
I agree.
and then you look at, I'm not going to be able to cite my sources here. The Bible verse that talks about how one can eat the meat sacrificed to idols and it's not a problem, and another, I think it's Ephesians, and another can't. And so the one who can eat the meat sacrificed to idols shouldn't do that around the people who cannot, without it leading them into sin. I think that verse, that concept, kind of gets used a lot to justify the all or nothing attitude towards things like drinking, because it gets to well, you have an alcohol tolerance through the roof, you can have 7 beers and whatever. This other guy, he smells a glass of whiskey and he falls over blackout drunk. And then we just, because, hey, we're not going to get into the situation, we're going to live beyond the shadow of the doubt of sin. Well, we're going to live beyond the shadow of a doubt of sin. And it really is a Pharisaical attitude.
Yeah.
People, the Pharisees weren't the bad guys in the Bible. That attitude, that gets missed a lot in how we teach the New Testament. But it was their attitude that was what had corrupted their actions, not their actions corrupting their attitude. They wanted to stay so far away from sin that they they backed into it the other way around. And I think that's with your friend, where the alcohol is controlling him even though he's not drinking it at all. I think that's that same kind of deal, where the Pharisees became controlled by the rules that they made. Whereas Jesus brings freedom from that. Sorry, I'm looking at the comments here.
I'm not gonna lie, at the Tom Woods event, I don't day drink, but at the Tom Woods event I did. It's also my first time I ever dined in Dallas. I was so out of it, I didn't even realize I haven't paid yet. I just walked off for the event. I emailed them and tried to pay. They didn't remember me at all, so I guess they're not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so
to me, it's a universalist thing. It removes the individual connection about the individual can tolerate and can't tolerate.
Yeah.
And it applies universal ethics to everything. And almost everything universal is bad. Not everything, but almost everything universal is bad. Like God's love is universal.
Anything humans make that's universal is bad.
Yes. I can get behind that. It's one size fits all. And I have a problem with one size fits all anything. Like this idea of like your neighbor might sin. Like, and it was something to this idea of like, okay, if you know your friend is an alcoholic, don't invite him to the bar. You know?
Right.
Like there is an idea you have to worry about what you are actually going to affect your neighbor. There is that level, but at the same time, you cannot let the weak willpower of your neighbors affect your own individual life. Like it has to be a give and take round. That's all.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. So I trace that all or nothing attitude back to the Puritans personally.
I got a book coming in the mail called Puritanical Empire. It's a Catholic historian's take on the Puritans from beginning to now. And I am so excited because the Puritans were the beginning of the progressive politics. Cancer culture, ever moving goalposts, never being pure enough. These are puritanical ideas. And if you look at the progressive and the Tradcons, they're the same side. The Tradcons and progressive are flip sides and the other side of the same coin. They're both Puritans with different aesthetics.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited to go through that entire book and just it's not an audiobook of it. It's only a physical book, so I have to actually sit down and read it. But
that's why Rhode Island is a great one of my favorite of the 13 colonies, because it was all of the people that the Puritans kicked out.
That sounds like a fun place. Okay, so after having read the Symposium and kind of going deeper into philosophy, how would you define love now?
How I would define love now. I think that love is I'm gonna steal a little bit. How they say that what people like, you can't love what you lack.
Mm.
You love you love what you lack. You can't love what you have. If you
Yeah.
say you love it when you have it, what it actually means is you want it in the future.
Yes, that was something that blew my. I read that when Aristotle's conversations and his Socratic with Theodema and Agathon. It was
Mhm.
yeah, it was kind of my eye opening to me. I was kind of like, oh, I get this. I see it.
I think love is the thing that all people love.
Mm.
In that sense of it is the thing that all people are lacking.
Mm.
Everyone is lacking this thing. Everyone is striving for it. And because everyone is lacking it, there is no one people can look to see what having it fulfilled looks like.
Mm.
So it is just everyone is trying to find it in their own way, and I think the only place you get it is Jesus.
Mm.
I think that's the source of love. But if you can't find that, you're going to be looking forever.
Mm.
But when you find it, you have it forever, and you still have, like, when you have Jesus, it's, hey, this is something that's going to be forever. So it is hey, I want this in the future. Well, you have it in the future, and you have it in the future. So does that answer how I would define it?
It does. I get what you're saying. I want to be a complete cop out. All I know is I know nothing, and I can't even begin to describe it. Like I can't. For me, I have. This is the only time I want to ever use it, but I have no lived experience with love, and so I can't even describe the feelings of love. And so I'm not even going to. I can give examples of what I would think love is like, or calling the greater, but I can't articulate the emotion because I haven't felt it, and so I'm not even going to begin to. I'm not gonna try to do it. I'm gonna say I know nothing, and I need to find my diatoma.
Yeah.
I need to find her. But
Love
yeah.
fills the sin-shaped hole.
Mm.
There you go.
Isn't that what Pascal said? All men have a God-shaped sized hole in their heart.
Yeah.
I used to hate Pascal because I never understood Pascal's ways, though. But I didn't realize he had other things about him that were also good. Like an idiot, I boiled down philosophers to the one idea, and I ignored the rest of it.
Of course.
Well, we've gone through. Let's talk about Alcibiades. So after Socrates kind of goes through his idea of love, a young idiot shows up drunk, makes everybody else drink, and basically confesses how much he loves Socrates, and how Socrates will not even have the time of day for him.
Yeah.
Like the humiliation he endures because Socrates and him share a bed, and Socrates won't do anything. I absolutely love it.
I think narratively what we see included here is the baser love. Because what he feels for Socrates is just, oh, you're the best. And Socrates is like, you don't act. No, stop. Go away.
Hold on. The problem with the woke isn't that the puritanical. No, the problem is not puritanical. Okay, it's not that the rules are destructive, because puritanical ideas in general would cause a revolt against those puritanical ideals. And so I would have an objection to anything being a puritanical mindset towards anything, because the revolt against that is always going to be worse than the puritanical ideas in the first place.
I'd have no problem with the woke being destructive if they kept it to themselves.
That's why I love California. If everyone else is a leftist, at this point, you want that here? Fuck out of here.
Yep.
But that wasn't real leftism. They are puritanical, but that's not their problem. That's the basis of their political ideology, is a puritanical attitude and mindset. They were born out of the Puritan movement. I'm not gonna.
That's another podcast.
That is another podcast. That is gonna be basically my entire symposium argument. Is the Puritans ruined everything, and the Puritans can trace their lineage to the Enlightenment and to the Reformation to William of Ockham.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to say Puritans or critical Bible reading, or reason alone Bible reading. I'm not gonna. I don't know what I'm gonna go with yet. I'm very tempted to make it a focus on Puritans. But
see, I'm gonna blame it on the Capetian dynasty.
I don't even know what that is.
They were the third dynasty of France, after the Merovingians and the Carolingians.
Okay. I think I know what you're referring to. See, look, this actually Michael gets into this great point here. I think Michael knows a Puritanian and spirit, but Catholic. Okay, so I have a big thing to say about this. Okay, a lot of Catholics who rejoin the Catholic Church after being Protestant or are raised in the puritanical attitude become Catholic Puritans. Okay, they attack the same attitude Puritans have towards sin and towards everything, but they cloak in a Catholic veneer of, well, why don't you believe in this, or this? You ever see Liberty Hangout on Twitter? Those are Catholic Puritans. Michael knows, Catholic Puritan. Nat Ross, Catholic Puritan. There are a lot of Catholics who have adopted the Puritan framing of things because they are Catholics born and living in America. They are wrapped their identity up in American Puritanism with their Catholicism, and they become Catholic Puritans, and they are the worst kind. So what I mean by Puritan is the outfits of Victorian Protestantism towards America. It became the Puritan view of sin being a focus on the act and not the forgiveness. And the idea of all or nothing towards alcohol drinking, and the view of sex being carnal and disgusting, and the view of work being a good unto itself rather than a punishment God gives us for eating the apple. These are some of the theological issues I have with Puritanism when it comes to their interpretation of things.
It's the absolutism.
Yes, the universalism and the absolutism is my problem with Puritanism. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot to say about it, and I'm going to do a podcast on it, and I want to get, because the guy from Controversialist basically blames everything on the Puritanism, and I want to more dive for the sake of grace. Micah, you are too smart to not have your own podcast. Okay, you're gonna be on this one soon. He basically blames everything on Puritanism and the Reformation, and so I am gonna have to find a way to get him on because he's interesting. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I don't know how long we've been going for, because when I started this podcast, the live timer was already at a really high number, and so I don't know how long we've been.
About an hour and a half.
Okay, hour and a half. That's not so bad. Do you have anything you want to add to what we've been talking about? What's about love? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with what exactly?
Moral dogma for the sake of grace.
Dogma. I have a problem with dogma in general because it ignores reason. It's stating the right opinion without reason behind it. What Socrates talks about actually in this book, that someone who can have the right opinion for no reason is ignorant. No, the Amish or Nazi are Puritan because they aren't trying to convert people to agree with them. So one aspect of Puritanism is the universalism of trying to convert others. You don't see a lot of Amish apologetics trying to convert people. You see some Orthodox Jews, but they aren't trying to convert people to Judaism, trying to convert people to believe in God. And so I will have I say the universalism and the emphasis on conversion through not even good arguments, but like the hellfire preaching is born out of Puritan dogma.
Mm-hmm. If you don't do this, you will die, and it will be painful.
Yes. You want to see a good example of Puritan? Go look at a street preacher. That's going to be my example of that. I have so much I could say about it. If we get into the topic of Puritans anymore, I'm going to have to do a whole. We'll have to continue this podcast into 2 parts. Yeah, I'll have to edit out the parts of it. But
it's not even doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. It's doing the right thing for no reason and doing it in the wrong way.
Yes. Okay. So, real quick, I'll get into this. You are more Plato. You more on. But then they got the zine issue with no converts. Yes, they do. There is an issue that is, but that's an issue in any small community. I mean, they have to do that. They have to do that in Ireland and
Greenland or Iceland. They have the app to make sure you don't date your cousin.
Yeah, they have. It's not just a problem with non-converts. It's a problem with any group that makes the emphasis on in-group continuative lines. So I'm not going to blame that on the non-converts. I'm going to blame that on their being an in group. You know, any in group that's too focused on the in group won't allow anything new. And Judaism is weird about things. It all travels through the mother. If the son marries someone who's not Jewish, the kids aren't Jewish, in a sense.
Yeah, it's matriarchal, hereditary.
Yeah, and so they have a weird issue where like they've already cut down the gene pool by half by doing it that way instead of allowing both parts. So non-converts and the gene pool to matriarch is there's a lot of problems with the Hasidic and Orthodox Jews. Not, I mean, problems in general, but not anything like racist about it. I'm just saying there's like logistical problems continuing on the lineage. So I want to play it a little bit because you are more you're more of a Platonist than Aristotelian, would you say?
Yeah. It's a toss-up between the two of them. I don't like it when anyone leans too heavily on any one philosopher. So that's when I said my problem with Aquinas is that he leans so heavily on Aristotle.
Well, he quotes Augustine more than he quotes Aristotle.
Right, and Augustine is a Neoplatonist.
Yeah.
And I have that issue with Augustine as well.
There was a book, I bought it, and I'm going to have to show it to you real quick. Okay, here we go. It's by Lloyd P. Garrison. You ever heard of him?
The name sounds familiar.
Okay, so Aristotle as a Platonist, it basically makes the argument that Aristotle was a Platonist, and that there is really a false dichotomy in the disagreements.
I can see that.
Yeah, I will lend you the book when I'm done with it.
Okay.
It was recommended to me, one by Peter Kreeft. He recommended it, but I talked to an actual Platonist on Twitter, and I said, "What should I know going into Platonist, given that I'm a Thomistic Aristotelian?" He said, "Read this, and you probably will have less disagreements than you think."
Yeah.
And so the Mormons have so many converts. The name pool is great. The converts of it's like you married 5 wives and you brought in multiple people. My aunt married a Mormon, and his son went into the bicycle thing for a year. And I have talked to him. He's a very friendly, nice guy. I'm not surprised he didn't convert anybody.
Niceness is not a biblical virtue.
I won't say neither is tolerance.
Neither is tolerance. Tolerance and niceness are similar, and neither are.
And I think I can trace most of our problems in America either to Puritanism or to revolt against Puritanism.
Yeah.
I feel like it has to be more focused. Like, one of my issues I have with a lot of conservatives is they say you're trying to destroy the family, and their family is the nuclear family, which is already a destruction of the family beforehand.
Yeah.
Like once you get your history and philosophy outside of America, you realize, oh, we're not that great.
The family is the tribe.
Honestly, the Italians have things figured out, like culturally and family wise. They got it figured out. Governmentally, I'm not going to touch that, but if we can incorporate American systems of government with the Italian family structure, maybe the American experiment would have lasted longer.
Yeah.
That's my argument. Well, we've gone for almost 2 hours. I've drank half a bottle of wine and got to pee. Caleb, do you have anything you want to add about love and the symposium or Plato or Puritans or basically any of the topics covered today?
Not all Protestants are Puritans, and I'm sorry for the ones that are.
I will make that. This is why I say Puritan, not Protestantism, because they are not the same. I do want to talk to you because you mentioned a while ago one of the new things in Protestant theology is trying to fix the problem of devalue of sex and marriage. I want to talk to you about that a little bit. Maybe not on a podcast, but in person.
Yeah,
I'm interested in the idea because I feel like a lot of Protestant theology, early days on, was pure. How do I put this? When the Reformation happened, there were those who went to exactly against Catholicism, I think, too far, and wanted to drop anything that was Catholic-esque. And I think there's a real problem with like Dean. You ever listen to a prosperity preacher?
Yeah.
I think there's some problems where it's like, okay, you went too far. And a lot of the critiques Protestants gave against religion against Catholicism, atheists adopted for that against religion. And so I again, I have my Protestant brothers and sisters in Christ. I love a lot of them. I do blame them for a lot of things, but at the same time, I know the church isn't perfect.
Yeah.
And so there's again, even if you guys are closer to allies now than ever before, there is responsibility on both sides to say for everything going to shit. And there was an actual reforming and reformation and not a revolt, I think we would be much better off as a society.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's funny. One of most of Luther's Protestant contemporaries, their complaint about Luther was that he didn't go far enough from the Catholic Church, because Luther still supported
he was still in the Marian doctrines.
Marian and transubstantiation and all of that. And when the other guys called him on it, after their debate, Luther wrote his letter back after they had arguments and everything. And he's like, we'll have the debate in Germany next time, and you'll find that necks do not bend so easily here. And he was basically just saying, keep arguing with this and I'm going to fight you.
Okay. So, Marcel, I don't have a problem against strict rules. I have a problem with strict rules applied universally. And I do have a problem with strict rules in general. I think the Catholic view of sin, for the emphasis on forgiveness and absolution, is a better view than the Puritan view of damnation preaching. One of the critiques they had of Reformation was you have priests go into brothels and then go into confession the next day. They aren't the hypocrites. No, they're human. I think that's fair to say. We should be happy they are going to confess it and seeking forgiveness, and they are trying to better themselves. I think that's a good thing. And I think trying to have strict rules where you start trying to, if the Catholics excommunicated too much, they'd be Puritan. And that's my problem. I think we have to understand people are humans that make mistakes, and anything strict that involves kicking out or stunning is going to be counter-effective.
Yeah, because it is the Puritan idea that makes it where it's now taboo to talk about Rabbi Zacharias.
Yes.
You can't bring him up because of the Puritan idea of, well, he messed up, so everything he did is invalidated. On the other hand, the biblical structure is pretty cut and dry, and I think both sides go too far in the wrong direction, where the biblical structure says, hey, if someone in the church, if a church elder is acting out in sin, you talk to them. If they keep doing it, you talk to them in front of the rest of the elders. If they keep doing it, you treat them like they're not a Christian anymore.
Yes.
You welcome them. You're still their friend. And I think you get on the one side, hey, you're shunned, you're gone, you're out, whatever. But on the other side, you get the I'm probably going to step on toes. You get the flip side of, you see this is my outside perception of it. All of the scandals inside the Catholic Church. And I know, again, they get exaggerated and people are doing the witch hunts on the church looking for these things, and they find it. And that one that came out recently was ridiculous because they just cold called people and asked them, did a member of the Catholic Church do anything to you? And then if they said yes, they didn't follow up. They just marked it as, hey, this was a person. But then you get, hey, we didn't get rid of any of the priests.
Hey, okay, turn off your Wi-Fi. Define what you mean by worst tendencies of Catholic Church so I can respond. I want to know what you mean by worst tendencies before I respond to that. There was something by Andrew Clavin recently said his son got engaged. He's gay, and he went to a engagement party. He's going to go to the wedding and be supportive. And in a modern Christian framework, look at Ben Spiro. He wouldn't go to a gay wedding. He wouldn't go to Dave Rubin's wedding, but he'd go to a reception. Many Christians, if they had this kid who was gay, wouldn't go and be a part of it at all. So they would view celebrating with the loved one as celebration of the act of sin. Yeah. And I am sympathetic to that argument. I am very sympathetic that, hey, you don't want to. I did go to receptions fine. I did have marriage because I view marriage as a sacred contract with God, and I view marriage outside of a church, outside of religion, outside of moral norms as being a sanctified marriage. I can see I am sympathetic to the argument, but at the same time, loving someone through their faults is one of the ways to get them to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Cold turkey cutoffs is justify their hatred towards you.
Yeah.
And so you have to love someone even if you don't think they're making the right mistake. You need to make a mistake. And I think the Puritan view would be son, cut off, and don't associate anymore.
Yeah.
Once again, when a lot of gay people come out to their parents and the parents say, "You're not my son, I don't want to talk to you anymore," that's a Puritan-esque mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was more harmful than anything else in recent history.
And it goes into that. I think gay homosexuality is probably the biggest one in America, where it's the unequal treatment of sin,
Mhm.
and that is a Puritan
Yes.
mindset. Where, hey, why'd you go to that guy's wedding? Because everyone has sinned. Why does this sin mean I'm cut off from my family? But that guy, who knows what he did? I mean, everyone commits probably every sin at some point or another.
Yeah.
So why did you go to the lying alcoholic's wedding, but not to the gay wedding?
Yeah, that's a good point.
What's the difference?
People at alcoholic's wedding and they get drunk and you're drinking with them. Is that not celebrating in someone's sin in the same sense of going to someone's gay wedding?
Yep.
Like, I think and you don't want to take this too far in the reverse because then you end up becoming tolerant and left and accepting of everything and don't want to argue that it is sin. Like, there's a golden mean. Aristotle got this.
Yep.
Christians would read Aristotle. I think so many. Everyone's read Aristotle. Because it's a celebration of sin. What's that? Okay. What's that? My argument is this. When someone is making a mistake, do you love them through the mistake, or do you cut them off? Are you only friends with someone when they're good? Are you only friends with someone when they're perfect? Obviously not, because then you would have no friends with Jesus. I'm not gonna be mean because I have a really mean joke to make, but I'm not gonna be mean because I don't know you. So I'm so in love with Jesus right now. I'm not making a really funny but mean joke right now because I don't know you. Sunny is the best means of non-violent social control. You give that up. Okay, no. Sunny is not the best mean because Sunny pushes them into their own culture where they will vote and become bigger and bigger and bigger, and they influence your culture more. Sunny is not the best means of non-violent social control. The best means is loving them, talking to them, and bringing them home. And bringing someone home requires contact.
Literally what I just talked about with Rhode Island.
Yes.
They shunned all of the people out of their colony, and they said, okay, we're going to go make our own. And then they never came back to Puritanism. They never came back to it. The guy who started it was actually a non-Puritan pastor who said, these people still need Jesus. Why are you kicking them out for needing Jesus?
Yes. We're going to have to do a whole Puritan podcast. We're going to have to do a whole podcast on, once I read the Puritan history book and we go through it as well, we're going to have to do an entire podcast on this because we're going too long. We're getting off topic for what the podcast is about, but I have so much I want to talk to you about now with this conversation.
Yes.
Let's respond to this one because he finally provided the worst turn off Wi-Fi, then we'll get into it. There's certain rejection of the feminine and the general sense, including native from the later Catholic Church's institution. Rejection of feminism. I don't know. I don't see a rejection of feminine. I mean, we focus on Mary. Mary is the mother of God. We focus heavily on Mary. I don't see that as a rejection of feminine identity. One of the greatest things that ever happened was the virgin birth, which the only women can do. I don't see that as we celebrate that. I don't think it's a rejection of femininity. I don't. If you mean rejection of outward sexuality, then maybe I can see your argument from there. But I don't think that's puritanical because we want excommunicating people for mistakes. You know, I don't know what you.
Yeah, I interpret that as getting into what I brought up on the Tower of Babel. If you want to get into that hole.
Tower of Babel. Oh, guys, I want to play it here for the first time. This is the intro for Tower of Babel. I love that. Okay, so let's respond to somebody to see people still objecting to things. Yeah, unrepentant sin. But at the point of confessing, we can make repentance. We can ask forgiveness.
Mhm.
If the people want repentant, like Joe Biden is not repentant, he should be excommunicated. But if people are being repentant and trying to fix their mistakes, even if someone is an addict and is struggling to fail, that does not mean they are not non-repentant. It means they are failing at this being better. There is a difference between saying my sin is not a sin. That is being prideful of your sin by saying it's not a sin is being not repentant. Failing to beat your sin is not unrepentant. God expects obedience, however we fall short, but it's not perfect. Yeah, why are disrespectful? I'm not disagreeing with that. Vox, I think that's a fair claim. I don't see where your disagreement comes in here, disrespecting, because I'm not disagreeing with anything that statement. Okay, so later Catholic Church teaching turn off your Wi-Fi at night. My problem was anything post Trent and post Vatican II Catholics are weird because post Vatican II was Vatican II was terrible in its effort to work within the culture and use the cultural language instead of being outside or above. And post Trent, the Council of Trent, in my opinion, responded correctly to the Protestant Reformation, but the bishops post Trent adopted many of the critiques of Protestantism and ended up merging the worst parts of Protestantism and Catholic bureaucracy to create Protestant bishops, pretty much. And that was my problem with some of it. If a man is getting married to a man, they are not making a mistake. They are sinning unrepentantly. If they are not Christian, they are sinning unrepentantly. If they are not Christian and they are not believing in God, yes. But we should love someone regardless of their mistake. And if they're not a part of the church, there's no reason to excommunicate they're not part of the church. And so we should love someone. We should love like Jesus, and Jesus loves regardless of our mistakes.
Yeah,
and we should love someone the same way.
And if they are in the church at that point, yeah, excommunication if you're Catholic, or I wouldn't expect someone to be a pastor in that situation on the Protestant side of things, and I wouldn't adhere to anything they taught because clearly they're going off the rails, but that doesn't mean you cut them out of your life and disassociate from them.
No, Michael, I accept Vatican II views on grace. I think Aristotle is probably in heaven. But that's a different podcast. I don't want to get into that one. That's an entire different doctrine teaching. Keep using the word mistake. Yeah, because sins are mistakes and people make mistakes. And we should, God has ordered us toward the good and we should try to be good. And the mistakes we make when we're not ordered to God's will for us, which is, sin. And we should be accepting someone who is trying to live justified, live a right life, but is still making mistakes. I don't see. I always thought my view of sin and towards people was my leftiness, not my pre-Puritan ideal. Like I'm not a lefty. I'm just a pre-Puritan. Like there's a difference there, and I am finding great comfort in that because that's making me not feel as bad when I talk to my left friends or my Christian friends, and they're like, you would go to a gay wedding? That's accepting sin. It's like no. I explained in a pre-Puritan view. They're like, oh, that makes sense. I'm like, okay, we almost gone for I think.
Yeah, we're almost at 2 hours.
Yeah, we're gonna have to call this. I normally go for an hour and a half, but how is it the shortest book I've done end up being one of my longer podcasts?
We've got some great comments to play off.
That's why I love doing live. I love getting set. I will say I absolutely hate debating someone in SAC because I think I'm an unfair advantage. Like with Seth, I feel bad because I have an unfair advantage against you because didn't know your intro. Didn't know how far intro into the face you are. There's too much backpedaling by Christian these days.
Agreed.
By what face? I mean, I am born and raised Christian. Never was an atheist. Joined the Catholic Church 6 months ago. Was probably very Catholic light for about a year. There is a lot of backpedaling by Christians, yes. But I think if the backpedaling was to tradition and pre-Trentian views of things, I think there would be, I think if you incorporate the Protestant focus on holiness in the Bible with pre-Trentian views of everything else, I think you would have a much better rounded out face view towards society and the world around you. Yeah. I'm not understanding what Vox said. Vox said two things here that I'm not quite sure what he means by them. But that's gonna be a different podcast because I gotta wrap it up. If you're listening, people, please subscribe. I am 1 subscriber away from having 200 subscribers. So if one of you would please subscribe, that would just be fantastic.
It could be you.
Could be you. Caleb, do you have anything you want to say or add?
No, thanks for having me on.
It's no problem. This has been an absolute blast.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, give you plugs. Where can people find you on Twitter if they want to find you?
At Caleb_Salmon. Or
Wonderful.
walking around Lakeland.
Well, everyone, this is another episode of Face, Liberty, and Praxis. You all have a kick-ass night.